Yes, and we're back. I'm Jordan Hembrough, your host. This is Hasbro's continued coverage of San Diego Comic-Con 2023. Star Wars fans, you are in for a treat. Of course, I'm sitting with the one and only New York Times bestseller and creator of the High Republic series, Miss Justina Ireland. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
I am fine. Enjoying New York Comic. Oh, not New York Comic. We're at San Diego now. You know what? It's all blurred.
What coast is it?
How are you enjoying San Diego?
Oh, I love San Diego. It's great.
Yeah.
The weather is perfect, and then you just hang out outside all the time. I don't go inside when I'm in San Diego.
No.
I just sit outside and watch.
You know what the funny thing is? I'm a huge introvert, but when it comes to San Diego with the sun and the great weather, I just stand outside anyhow too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are here, and we are talking about your wonderful, wonderful new project.
Yeah.
We just had a panel, the Lucasfilm panel, the publishing panel.
We did, yes.
Okay. We announced a lot of great stuff.
So
So
many
first
things.
of all, let's talk about the High Republic.
Let's
talk about everything you've done. You brought a book with us.
I did.
Show us,
I did.
Tell us.
This is where it began,
This is
right?
it? Yep.
This is the first middle grade novel in phase 1. It feels like 87 years ago, but it was like 2021.
A Test of Courage.
Yeah, and this is our first appearance of Vernestra RWOH, who we now know grows up to be, kind of a order go-between with the Senate in Acolyte.
Yes.
So that this is where we get to meet her for the first time as our young, fresh-faced Jedi prodigy who's like, the galaxy's the limit, I can do anything.
Yeah,
and then everything goes wrong.
Of course, just like everything else in life. When you're a teenager, you're all filled with hope and promise that you can take on the world, and then life kind of kicks you in the butt a little bit.
And then you're like, oh no, but it's fine, and then it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Vernestra RWOH is, for lack of a better term, she's your baby. I mean, you
She
created
is.
her.
I know.
I want to talk about that because, we grew up, or people in my era grew up with incredible legacy characters like Han Solo and Chewbacca and Luke Skywalker. It's incredible for me to see a brand new character come to life, become canon, and to actually have an opportunity to sit and talk to one of the creators. How does that go about? I mean, what's the process to
When you put it like that, it's so overwhelming.
No,
it's
incredible.
I just wanted to sit down and write a fun book. It's a fun Star Wars book.
Yeah.
No. So when we
Were you a Star Wars fan when you were younger?
I was. So when I was younger, I didn't read a lot of the comics and the other books just because I never saw them. They weren't something in my neighborhood that we had at the library, and so almost all of my reading was exclusively library books. Although I do believe I once picked up the Lando novels. Remember the Lando novels
Yes.
from the 80s where he's like the Lothario of the stars or
He
whatever.
always is, yeah.
And I remember my mom taking it from me, that's not for you.
Oh my God,
it was a
really?
little age. I think it was because it had those very fancy covers. The first time I went to Lucasfilm,
It was like a Harlequin romance novel.
yes, yeah, but with action adventure and stuff like that. But I remember the first time I went to Lucasfilm, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember these books. They have the old covers in the hallways there. But yeah, so I was really into the movies. Of course, I was really into Ewoks because what 8-year-old wasn't.
Yep.
And then I kind of my friends would read. I had a friend who was a very super fan in high school, and we would go the day the books came out, so she could buy them. But I was like, who are these characters? I didn't, because I didn't know. And it was at that point, the canon was so deep. If you missed a book, you're
right.
God bless. And then when I met my husband, it was the year that Phantom Menace came out, and he was like, I want to go see this thing. And I was like, he's like, I got to go see Star Wars. And I was like, I didn't even know you were a fan. And it was it's one of those things I've learned now. It's there are people who are Star Wars fans, and then there are people who are Star Wars fans. And you're just some people you're you show up to their house and oh, Star Wars fan. And then some people you're oh, you have to wait till you go to the basement or their
Were you a
their
closet
office.
Star Wars fan?
I don't know if I was a closet Star Wars fan or if I was just a Star Wars fan who didn't
You didn't have to show it. You didn't have to tell anyone.
I didn't have any T-shirts or anything.
Right.
But we went to the Phantom Menace, and I just remember my husband was so excited about pod racing, and I was like,
I like pod racing.
Do you remember the game, the pod racer game for Nintendo 64
I
or
do.
whatever? And it was so hard.
I do remember that.
Yeah. I loved smoking my husband in that. I would just murderize him. But
oh, man.
But yeah, so that was kind of when I was okay. And then when the sequel trilogy came out, my son was young enough that we went to the theater, and he was enraptured. So with Force Awakens, and so then we were okay, yeah.
So you're a Star Wars family.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
It's kind of weird to think about it that way, yeah, because it's just it's a thing that's always in our house, right? It's you don't think about butter, it's just there, and
just
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
It's there. It's great.
Star
I like
Wars.
it.
Butter, just mainstay
That's all you
staples
need.
for every
Bread,
household.
milk, eggs,
And
Star Wars.
Star Wars, that's it. So you're a fan. And how does this actually? How do you actually get the call? Tell me about like what happened.
Oh wow! So my
Get the call from Lucasfilm.
Yeah. So I had written a Lando's Luck book for the Flight of the Falcon that tied into the Solo movie.
Right.
So I was just kind of, I got a call from Mike Siglain, and he's like, hey, we're doing this new project. It doesn't have a name yet. We're calling it Project Luminous. And I was like, that sounds like Jedi. That sounds like Jedi stuff. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you who the other authors are, but if you'd like to participate. And of course, my first response was like, are you sure? Like, because I guess like as a writer, you're used to like, nobody acknowledging a good, nobody ever tells you good job on that book. Sometimes people are like, I really like that book, but no one's like, there's not like a ribbon at the end.
Very few times people say, I like that book. By the way, I like the book so much, I'm going to give you another job.
Right.
Which is great.
Which is what you always want as a writer.
Yes.
And so I was like, yeah, sure. And so then he's like, yeah, we're going to go to Skywalker Ranch in like 3 weeks to start brainstorming. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I just remember like I hung up the call, and then my husband came home from work, and he was like, why are you okay? Like,
why are you crying?
No, I was just like on the edge of the couch in like shock. I was like, I think we're doing like a Star Wars thing. And he's like, oh, it's another like middle grade book. I'm like, no, I think it's a big thing. Because we didn't know what it was. We knew it was like interactive and multimedia and that kind of thing. But we just kind of like, it was just an idea at that time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so from then, I've just kind of been like appreciating each day as it comes, because it's like,
so you brainstorm. You're there with the other authors.
Yeah.
It's a very collaborative project.
It
Project
is.
Luminous. So going back, Project Luminous is actually the code word. It was the code word for High Republic.
It was the hot code word
They
for
didn't
High
tell
Republic.
anybody what it was. It didn't tell anybody what it was.
Yeah.
You guys eventually knew what it turned into.
Yeah.
But they kept operating under Project Luminous.
Yes.
Okay. So you're there. You're all brainstorming. What's the inception of Vernestra? Like, do you remember the time when you're like, I think I know what I want to do?
Yeah, so it was after we'd left Skywalker Ranch, because we went the first time and then we went the second time and kind of firmed up the story beats. And so we had a kind of a character document, and Michael Siglain, who's kind of the
head of
creative director,
Lucasfilm Publishing.
Yep. He was like, we need more Jedi. And I'm like, but the Jedi are boring. And I know, that? Right? Yeah. Literally, like, past me is like,
exactly.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So I was like, why do we need more Jedi? And of course, the joke was, it's like, well, it's going to be a long project. Nobody has plot armor. We're going to have to kill some people.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, sure. So I came up with Vernestra, Imri, and a few other like characters. Because Avon Starros, I was like, I love these smart kids. And so I was like, oh yeah, like it's a middle grade, like let's put some regular kids in there, so like when kids read, they can see themselves. And then when I was writing Test of Courage, I was like, oh wait, this character is like unexpectedly complicated, right? Because you just put in like their backstory and like and I knew like a few like touch point moments for her,
right?
But nothing. And then you start to explore the character when you're writing, and then you're like, oh, there's so many things you don't see in the outline or in the top level ideation
that you've got to fill in.
That you have to fill in when you're writing.
Yeah.
And then you start spending all this time with a character, and you're like, kind of want to spend more time with this character. I want to see what she does next, right? Like, she's very idealistic. She loves the Force. She thinks the Order is like where she belongs. And then it's like, what happens when you're there and you start to like question? Yeah. Like, we're here, but should we be, kind of thing. And it was just such a great, just an entertaining arc, and such a character that kind of like, sometimes characters you have to kind of struggle to pull out who they are. And she was a character who just came out like, this is who I am, because we all know that person who like, did really well, and then like gets to a point and they're like, yeah, I'm a lawyer, but I think I just want to open a bakery.
I love it.
Right? And so it's just like, I love that character. She's been so dynamic. She's been kind of one of those characters, like, like some of the other characters in the High Republic, like Bell or Buryaga or Avon, Avar. Like, they're you know who they are, and
Absolutely.
they are hero types. But like, Vernestra's been able to have a real kind of emotional character arc, and I also think that's why people respond to her, because I think we've all been like that person.
Yeah,
who's
she's
like,
become an absolute fan favorite.
Yeah, and so like it's kind of
absolutely.
nice. Yeah,
which is great. So, talking about being a fan favorite and talking about being so successful, did you ever think that she would actually metamorphosize and become what we're looking at today?
Oh no, this is still insane to me.
Did you realize that like your character, your brainchild, become like a toy? That
No,
it's going to
no.
be on every kid's shelf.
I write
across
books.
the U.S.
We don't do this.
Yeah.
like maybe you'll make your own Funko Pops, right?
Yeah.
Like take some, at home painting
Right.
them. You're like one day you'll.
Yeah.
But like when they sent me the photos of this, I was like, nah.
Is this the first time you've actually seen her?
This is the first time I saw the figure. Well, when we sat down, I picked her up,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm worried. I'm like, she's so cool.
Yeah.
But like
They got it right though. They got it perfect.
Yeah, no,
It-
it's
everything.
great.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
like, and she's like, I mean, she's got the robes underneath, and like the box is beautiful, and I words for a living, and I'm just like, I'll figure out how I feel in like 4 years. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
it's gonna,
Before,
it's amazing.
Before you leave, make sure they send you like a case of them and
Yes,
everything
I
too.
get it. Because no one's ever going to believe me if I say, yeah, I wrote a character and there's an action
An
figure.
action figure.
They'll be
for-
like, you
she has
write
an
books.
action figure. And you can have all the other ones too. You can have all your other characters and
Yes,
everything.
it's amazing.
I love this. Okay, so I got to ask you, what's new with Vernestra and what's she doing next? What are you going to do next?
Oh, so
Can
we
you talk
announced.
about it?
Yeah, we announced yesterday. I'm now writing an Acolyte adult novel. It's Vernestra RWOH.
Because Hasbro's always looking for more Vernestra figures to add to the line.
So it takes place 20 years before the Acolyte.
Okay.
And it follows Vernestra as she's been off being a Wayseeker. So a Wayseeker Jedi is a Jedi who kind of decides to not so much leave the Order, but kind of take a what we would call sort of a hiatus from the Order to follow the will of the Force and
A younger Vern.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so like she goes off. She like you kind of know like people who've seen the show will know why she's gone off.
Yep.
But you kind of know there's something happened, and she was like, I need to just be out in the galaxy and help people. And so she's been spending 10 years fighting pirates, helping people with the harvest, whatever people need. When she shows up, she helps, and she just follows the will of the Force. And then a young Jedi Knight named Indara is sent to find her because the Jedi Council has decided it's time for Vernestra to return because they have a task that they need her to accomplish. Okay. And Vernestra is kind of like ducking the call because she's like, no, I'm good, I'm happy. And then when she meets Indara, she's like, okay, wait, this Jedi, like, there's something here. Like, maybe she needs kind of a mentor figure.
Perfect.
And so they go off on an adventure. So
New
yay,
adventures.
adventures!
New adventures.
New adventures.
New possibilities. And you know what? Hopefully a lot more new Hasbro action figures to come for years to come.
Oh my God, that'd be so cool.
Fantastic. Justina, I want to thank you for taking time with us.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of San Diego Comic-Con. Stop by anytime. You are always welcome in the Hasbro booth.
Yes, it's an amazing booth.
Okay.
It's so cool. It's the coolest booth on the floor.
So, wait, I think we might have a question. Hang on, we do have a question. Oh, here we go.
Shut
no, the figure's
up.
for sale. The figure is for sale 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. So you guys can all...
Someone's going to have to buy it for me because I literally be on a plane.
Oh, okay, then we're going to have to
Someone
give
hook
you
me
one.
up. Yes.
Okay.
Now you have to give me one.
Okay, you know what? We're going to make sure we send you home
Awesome.
with one. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Continue watching us for Hasbro's continued coverage of San Diego Comic-Con 2024. We'll see you soon.
Bye.